Hey guys, how are you?
Hello.
Hello, everybody. So, you know that wall that you keep hitting? That wall that stops you cold every time you hit it. The one that makes you turn around, go home, give up, and say, well, maybe tomorrow. Welcome back. Today we are talking about courage, not the kind you are born with, the kind you actually build brick by brick, and even failure by failure, and wall by wall. I am Sarah Polyakov, and I am in Seattle.
And I'm Zev from Washington, D.C. And this is the Discover Your Amazing Edge podcast, Mind Shift Happens edition. We're nationwide, coast to coast, and worldwide. And as Sarah said, today we're talking about courage. Courage is your friend. And But before we get into it, I just want to make sure to remind you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel and that this podcast is available on multiple platforms, including iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and more.
Yes.
And Sarah and I are looking forward to unveiling our new interactive website very soon with tools to help you find the success you've been working towards. And I know what that's like because
Yeah.
Sarah and I work real hard. But let's begin today with recognizing that courage, that this thing that we see these powerful men and these powerful women, and we think courage is Viking, kind of thing. Courage is developmental. Courage is experiential. We learn courage incrementally. Some people think you're born with it. I'm just not very courageous, and I'm just not going to be able to be like them. And you see these very courageous people and you get all caught up. Well, everybody can be courageous. You just have to take the little stepping stones to courage one step at a time.
Yep.
And
Sure.
it's about repetition. You show up and you keep showing up and you can't get through that wall and you keep showing up. It's like playing a musical instrument. When you first start, it sounds horrible. I mean, you wouldn't want, to put some kind of show on, or you wouldn't want to. I mean, it sounds like, how am I ever going to learn this thing? Your fingers are fumbling, the strings buzz. It sounds horrible, but you keep practicing if you got that desire, and every day your fingers get better. You move a little, you get a little more nimble, and then one day, without even realizing it, you're playing a song. Um, that's for people who are able to keep hitting the wall.
Right.
Courage works the same way. I mean, I met this guy, James, at a conference last year. He told me he used to have crippling social anxiety. And if you know what crippling social anxiety is, it's horrible. It's like going to a meetup or some network meeting and you freeze and you feel horrible, and the room starts to spin and all you want to do is just hide, because making eye contact is scary. You can't even do it. You can't speak up in meetings. You get that feeling like, don't call on me when you're in a class or something like that. Please don't call on me. You do things like try to camouflage yourself, thinking that you can hide. And you can, because when you do that, people don't see you. You're successful. If you don't want to be seen, trust me, you won't be seen. Um, but there are people who, for instance, when they think about public speaking, getting up in front of a group and speaking, they would rather die. They'd rather get up in front of a cliff and jump the freak off of that cliff.
Go cliff diving.
Absolutely. But here's what this guy James discovered is that when you keep hitting the wall and you get a little braver and you get a little more courageous until you finally break through. but it's about consistency. It's about, you don't get there just because by giving a TED talk all of a sudden. That doesn't happen. Um, oh, sure. You gotta just, you gotta force yourself to raise your hand at that staff meeting. You gotta ask that question. You gotta put your idea through, just one idea. But his hand shook, his voice cracked. Ah! But he did it. He
Yeah,
did it.
did it.
And the next week, he did it again. Terrifying. It's terrifying. Nobody's saying that it isn't. It's terrifying to think that you don't have the courage to do the things that you want to do, or that you don't have any courage at all.
Right.
His heart's pounding. He's contributing idea. His heart's still pounding. 6 months later, he volunteered to, update a project to 20 people, in front of 20 people. A year later, he was leading workshops.
Good
Did
on
the
you.
fear go away? Hell no.
No.
Fear did not go away. What happened was his capacity to act despite the fear. That's what came into play.
And let's
He
talk.
grew.
Yeah, it grew. And that was a step-by-step thing. That wasn't an overnight thing. And I wanted to also add how fear enters into this courage equation. So why do we even have fear in the first place? It goes back to how we are wired. Our brains have not caught up to the modern world yet. And for all we know, we are still walking around on an ancient savanna, just waiting for that saber-toothed tiger to jump out from behind the tree. And so our ancient nervous system is still there. It's the oldest part of the brain, and it kicks in and it kicks us into that fight or flight state, saying danger, danger, warning, warning. And that is where fear plays into courage. So you have to override the fear to get to the courage. But do you ignore the fear? No, you don't ignore the fear.
Not so easy to ignore it anyway.
No, you can't ignore it. You give it space. The way I work with fear is I actually give it airtime in my head. Instead of ignoring it, I give it airtime. I let the fearful thoughts come in and I say, okay, I have acknowledged that you are here. I have acknowledged that you're telling me that I need to flee, but I actually don't. And now I'm letting you go, and I'm going to step into my courage. So that's in a nutshell how I deal with it.
Because all of us have, we don't know it, but we have the warrior inside of us. Some of you are going, I don't have any warrior inside of me. I don't have any warrior. I don't have any spears.
Fear, right?
I'd be afraid. I'd be afraid to do this, or I'd be afraid to do that. But it's been there your whole life, and it's buried under a lot of years of playing it safe, listening to all those doubts that come in your head, all the horrible overthinking, and basically you're choosing to be comfortable, to stay in your comfort zone as opposed to growth. The thing about comfort zone, and we talk about this a lot, Sarah and I, is that you don't have to jump out of your comfort zone, and leap, into some cliff and scare the hell out of yourself. You can do it. You can pace yourself. You can do it at your pace. You can step on one stepping stone. Today I stepped on one stepping stone out of my comfort zone. Hooray. Thank goodness I was able to do it. And you should celebrate that, because that's a huge thing. Staying in fear, in the bubble, in a comfort zone is going to get you nowhere. But being scared to death, that people are pushing you and prodding you to go, you need to fly out of your comfort zone. No, I don't need to fly anywhere. I need to take one step. And we urge you, take a one step.
Just one.
It's not always comfortable, but it's a step. It's not like a mile. It's a step.
So Zev, As you know, we do something new these days, and we do a little bit of improv role play for people who are watching with real life situations. Did you want to do that today?
Hey, go for it, Sarah. If you
Okay.
got it, go for it.
Okay, so I think we decided that Zev is going to be in the role of the therapist, and I'm going to be Jane Doe because I don't like to use people's real names.
And I'm going to be the coach.
Yep, he's going to be the coach, and I'm going to be Jane Doe, and I'm going to be presenting an issue to him that terrifies me. And we'll see what the coach says. Okay, changing into Jane Doe mode. Hi, Coach Zev.
Sarah, how you doing today?
I'm doing okay, but there's this thing that is going on in my life, and I'm actually terrified. It's actually a job thing. In fact, I'm a little embarrassed to talk about it.
Well, don't be embarrassed.
Yeah,
And I don't want you to be terrified. So
yeah.
let's try to come to some terms with that.
So I'm in this situation at work, and I was up for a promotion. And right before I was going to sign the papers for this promotion, the head of the hiring committee approached me. And he basically said that unless I went to Cabo San Lucas with him, I wouldn't be getting the promotion. And so, come the day I was supposed to sign those papers, there were no papers to sign. And the director of the organization told me that he wouldn't go to bat for me because he had a family to worry about, and this guy is far too powerful. And I'm terrified to go to human resources on my own, especially if the director of the company won't even support me. And I really need this money.
What are you thinking? You know, when the person told you what they told you.
Well, I was terrified because I realized that I had a choice to make. Either I go to Cabo San Lucas with him or I don't get my raise, or that's what I found out now. At the time, I thought he was just joking. But I found out that it's true. They've actually rescinded that paperwork. And I've told that I'm no longer up for the promotion and they're looking externally for another candidate.
But first of all, even if you went to Cabo San Luco and did that thing where, and quote unquote slept on the casting couch, which so many people, especially women, who want to get past the ceiling, have to do, and they have to make this decision on their own, and it's secret, and it's private, and it's terrifying, like the thing you're feeling. But how would you feel, if you got to where you got to, having to do that? How'd you feel?
I can't. I just can't do it. That's the thing. I can't. So, and they're letting me keep my job. That's the thing, is they're letting me keep my job, and it's not in the pay range I want, but it feels icky to go into work. And so I've been avoiding this person in the hall. Some of my coworkers haven't been talking to me. And I have some moments where my heart is racing and I feel truly fearful at work.
It all comes down to how you feel about you. There are people who will sacrifice anything to get what they want, and they will do anything. They'll pay, they'll play, they'll do whatever they got to do. There's other people that just can't live with it. You need to decide who you are. Somebody who can't live with it, then you can't live with it. Then you keep the job that you have, and you look and you recognize and reach down deep and see that you have great qualifications, the kind of qualifications that got you to even in touch with this promotion, that got you to the level that you could get there again. But this has to be your decision. This is a lifelong decision, something that you could, you could say, okay, I did it and I got to the top and that was great. Or this would make me sick for the rest of my life. And you have to really come to terms with that. And it's not about, it's not about fear, and it's not about courage in this case. In this case, it's really, about what you have to live with yourself. And you have, um, it was courageous to step up, for the promotion anyway. And I think you have to recognize the skill set that you have and that you're eventually going to get. And also that this particular company has some, shaky, negative, sketchy stuff going on, and others have come before you and probably been faced with this horrible thing. You're doing them no favors, and you're not doing anybody who comes after you any favors. But I think that to say that you don't have the courage, or to say that this fear is making you not do it, it's just not. It doesn't. It's not congruent with what's really going on. There's a nasty, nefarious thing going on, and you just got to move. You have to take a look at your own self. Take a deep breath, recognize that there are other places where you could use your assets, and that it would be an asset to them if you went working at their place where you didn't have to compromise, your values.
And you've just given me the courage to make some phone calls, because I do have some recruiters that I can call. And you're right. Thank you for snapping me out of this funk. Thank you for making me see something that
Absolutely.
I couldn't see on my own. Thank you, Coach Zev.
Sure. Tell me about the wall, Sarah. Tell me about what it is. We talked about the wall before, but tell me about the wall, hitting the wall. How do you get through?
Let's talk about the wall. The thing that I just brought up with Coach Zev in the improv is something that happened to me in my career when I was very, very early on in my career. And I went through all those feelings, and I actually did switch to an entirely different job. An entirely different sector. I went from this one sector to IT. So it turned out to be amazing, because I did not give in to that bullying, and I had to get past those walls. So let's talk about the wall. And we all have the walls. It's the thing that stops you dead in your tracks. Maybe it's that difficult conversation that you have to have with a friend, an in-law, a colleague. Maybe it's the career change that you have to make, just like I had to make that career change. And I was terrified. I was genuinely terrified during that period in my life. Or maybe it's the dream that you are too scared to chase, because sometimes people are afraid of their own success. But whatever it is, we want you to understand something. When you keep hitting that wall, you get a little braver and a little more courageous until you break through. But you have to keep hitting that wall several times. You have to hit it every single time, because that's where the courage kicks in, and that wall gets weaker every single time, and you get stronger. So courage is really something you can develop. You're building it right now. You're building it right now every time you act. And we also talk about fail forward, right? The concept of failing forward. We talk about that in our book, right? We talk about failing forward in our book, Discover Your Amazing Edge. And failing forward takes the courage to keep hitting those walls.
Especially when you fall and splatter all over the ground, and you end up looking up at the sky and going, oh my God, I fell again. How am I going to get myself up? How am I going to pick myself up? Well, courage is what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. It's not always about talent, and it's not always about luck. It's about trying. It's your willingness to keep going. The wall is always going to be strong. It's just as you hit the wall, you get stronger. You eventually get stronger than the wall and become stronger than the wall. It's not like all of a sudden, you get bitten by some spider that puts you into some superpower where you become, the super Avenger, and Popeye, drink, eating his spinach. And, that's his thing. Unfortunately, some people's courage is in a bottle, but, that doesn't last very long. Maybe once in a while, people drink a little courage, to get them by. But the people who do that often, end up, it's really not a long-term solution to figuring out how you're going to get the courage
It's
to
better
put
to find
yourself forward.
courage, right?
You have to have the willingness to fail.
Right.
I mean,
Fail.
it sucks, but the willingness to fail plus the willingness to get back up again. And, that's just not an easy thing. Nobody here is saying that it is. But what we are saying, and for sure the message of today, is that courage is developmental. It is learned. It is not innate. It's not something you're born with. You don't, you can acquire it. You can learn it. But you have to be willing, to take some, to get crushed sometimes and pick yourself back up.
Right. And do you remember, just to go off on a tangent, I remember the 1970s and the early 80s. Now, I was a kid, but I remember they had all these shows on courage. There was the $1 Million Man, there was the Bionic Woman, there was the Incredible Hulk, there were the Charlie's Angels, and all of those shows came down to courage for me. You notice that they all had some kind of superpower.
Even cartoons, Popeye, Mighty Mouse, all these things, that they have to have. I mean, these are and the ones that are popular today. I mean, all the Marvel movies, it's all about superpowers. It's all about emulating some kind of super power inside of you. And our work is really based on the whole idea is that your superpower really is your adversity. It's not, it's not necessarily your smarts. It's not necessarily your brains. It's about what challenges you. And
here's something that sets us apart. So Zev is describing the work that we do, but the thing is Zev and I have been through the ringer, and the wronger, not even a word, but we have been through that ringer and we have been wrung out more times than you can imagine, and in very big ways, especially Zev. I mean, we have been through it. So the thing is, we are not just speaking words, we are speaking from the point of people who have been leveled flat several times and have had to pick themselves up again and again and again. Right?
Absolutely.
So it's not talk here. No.
I think, here's the challenge for you out there who are listening. Find your wall, the one that you've been avoiding. You know what it is. The one you've been hitting, bouncing off of, not able to get through. The one that you tell yourself someday, maybe I'll get there, and then hit it again tomorrow. And it isn't going to be perfect. And there isn't anything perfect about it. And courageously, just move forward courageously. The day after that and the day after that, and keep hitting that wall. You'll get a little braver. Bravery and courage go hand in hand. And it's not like you have to go stand in front of a bullet, to show that you're stupid brave.
In fact, pick out your favorite superhero and start to internalize. What would Wonder Woman do? What would Incredible Hulk do? What would Wolverine do? What would Superman do? What would Batman do? What would Poison Ivy do? I mean, pick out your favorite superhero and internalize it, because at least it's an image. At least it's something that you can grasp onto. We talked about grabbing onto those rungs to pull yourself out. Well, you can have a model out there, right, to look to help you pull yourself out.
Because those superheroes, they're always trying to break through, even when they throw all kinds of things at them that weaken them, that they study specially to weaken, their fortitude or whatever it is that gives them their superpower, and recognize that they're always trying to break through. and they don't give up. And they think about tomorrow. They don't think about yesterday. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe next week. But this is about showing up. People say showing up is half the battle. I say showing up is the whole battle. Because if you keep showing up at that wall, you're going to go through it. And if you keep choosing courage over comfort, you're going to break through. And again, a reminder, don't worry about that comfort zone freak out, that people try to get you to do. People have tried with me. I've heard it done to other people, where they're just so exasperated and frustrated and scared to death that they get immobilized. You can't get immobilized. You have to do this at your own pace, but you have to move forward with some confidence, small steps at a time. Because what's on the other side of the wall? I mean, what's on that other side of the wall that you keep on hitting it for? What's on the other side of the wall is an extraordinary life, as opposed to the life that you're living right now, which obviously you want to move, forward somewhere else. We're meant to live. We're meant to live the life that we'd like to live. And the only way to do that is to keep on pushing forward. So lesson today is courage is developmental. Courage does not take place in a vacuum. Courage is about the steps you take moving forward, pacing yourself one step at a time, and moving comfortably into the place that you're trying to get to.
And sometimes you need a little help. So reach out for a year. I feel like this is a very serious conversation.
Well, it is a serious conversation. It's a conversation a lot of people have with themselves.
It is.
And, they have with other people, but it's embarrassing, when they have to, because people go, hey, buck up, be a man, do this, do that. We hear there are a lot of phrases that basically people say to other people. They don't help them through those phrases. It's not helpful, to say, why don't you just be a man? Why don't you buck up? Man up. Well, it's not about manning up. It's about trying.
And that is
it's about fortitude.
Yeah.
And maybe it's even about testicular fortitude. You know what I mean? Maybe you just got to, you just have to recognize that people don't get balls just wishing it, or being injected with some substance. They get it through experience, and they get it developmentally, and you can get there, and it's within your reach. But you have to be willing and recognize that you're going to fall down. And again, in the book that Sarah and I wrote, Discover Your Amazing Edge, it covers a lot of these different things. And you never have to read the book chapter by chapter, because each chapter has something basically in it that is preventing some people from getting to the place that they want to get to and finding the amazing edge that lives inside of all of us. It's just unfortunate that some people will never get and find it, because either they weren't nudged or they didn't reach in and find all the things that were blocking their own superpower that existed, that could take you to places that you can't even imagine. And I wish that for you, and I know Sarah does too.
Yeah.
And we want you to get on the other side of the wall, because we want you to live not an ordinary life, but an extraordinary life. So thanks for listening today. And go hit that wall and keep hitting it. Hit it again. And what you're looking for will come your way. We'll see you again Friday for Spicy Fridays. Sarah and I do 2 podcasts, one of them about relationships and one of them today about how we can really have, mind does shift.
Yeah.
mind shift. It happens.
It does.
And you can do that. So thanks for listening.
Thanks
Hit
for
the wall, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Okay.